All right. With Paul here. Paul, thanks for joining. Can we just start and just have you kind of just introduce yourself? You're a badass dude. So throw some of the badass throw some of your resume in there. Introduce yourself and kind of just put whatever you want to share. Yeah.
Sure. Thanks, man. My name is Paul Huszar. I am a retired Army officer. Went to West Point, served 23 years in the military, 4 combat tours in Iraq. My last assignment in the Army was as the Director of Training and Leader Development, or Dean of the Army's Engineer School. My last deployment in Iraq was 2009-10. I commanded a 1,000 soldier and airman joint task force centered around my combat airborne engineer battalion from Fort Bragg. Spent about 11 years on airborne status, 98 jumps too short of 100. And yeah, what else do you want to know?
Man.
In my current life, I am the CEO of VetCore. We're a restoration company that does water, mold, fire, temporary roof tarping, disaster response, and Team VetCore, which is the arm of the company that facilitates the franchising of that, trying to focus on creating meaningful, sustainable ownership, business ownership opportunities, and employment opportunities for vets and those who share similar values to me.
Right. Yeah, we're gonna come back to that because that was part of what we were looking at. So briefly, like when you found me, like where were you mentally, emotionally, physically? Like where were you when you kind of just found me or started working when we
Yeah.
started working together?
Yeah, I was in a hole, man. I was in a hole. I had a confluence of a bunch of things that happened in my personal and professional life. Almost all of them were centered around some sort of betrayal. I found you through your content on LinkedIn because I didn't know it at the time. I was in a relationship with a narcissist for 2.5 years. I had just gotten hoovered back into the relationship. Didn't even know what was going on at the time. And it ruined a really solid relationship I had. And as I traced my roots back to what happened then, I also had some challenges in my business world, some betrayal from former employees, some former teammates, etc. And I that all those things happened about the same time that the kind of the bad stuff of the narcissistic relationship after the love bombing phase happened and created a lot of anxiety in my life and uh yeah, just a ton of bad things happening. And over the course of the past, I'll say 2 years, really this past year, I created a ton of resilience in my life, but I didn't know that I had a trauma bond. I didn't know all of these mind games that were kind of being played on me, but I'd still invested pretty heavily in my spiritual and physical resilience and joined a Bible study group with a group of great men, have a group of three really close friends or spiritual advisors, I call them, who really got me kind of reset in my relationship with God and also just in my whole understanding of spirituality. And then also have group of 5 close West Point friends that encouraged me to do a full Ironman. And a year ago, yesterday was so yeah, a year ago Saturday was when I did Ironman Florida with those guys. And so the combination of my physical and spiritual resiliency really carried me through. But I didn't know what was going on at the time. I didn't know this whole deal about trauma bond and shit. And so I saw a lot of your content, was eating it up. I reached out to you because I still, despite that resiliency, I couldn't get out of this funk. And so I reached out to you and you helped me get out of the funk, man.
I appreciate it. So what was your kind of like the why you were looking for help is I think you more or less answered it, but you're kind of in a funk and you
Ugh,
done a lot of things, but it's like there's some even despite the Bible's like despite all the great support
yeah.
you have in place and despite everything, you still felt like, or I mean, I'm asking, but like, why did
Yeah.
fill a gap that you felt like you need to help with maybe?
Yeah. I was stuck. And I, the part two or the hoovering relationship that I didn't know was hoovering at the time ended in April. I started researching narcissism and understanding that, and I started kind of figuring out what was happening and why I was feeling the way I was. And that was helpful intellectually, but I still had these challenges emotionally, and I was just stuck. And I have a really great therapist, kind of life coach, who was helping me, but he didn't have a ton of experience in this area. And so I just started listening to you and your content, and I'm like, man, I'm buying what he's selling. It makes sense to me, but I got to get. I still couldn't get out of it, and then I reached out to you, and we did the mental and emotional release sessions. Like the first one, you just let me just tell you kind of what was going on for like 4 hours, and it was hugely helpful because it was validating. You validated what I had understood was happening, and during that time, kind of just identifying the limiting beliefs that I don't know that were caused by that, but were present in my life. Um, as a result of the challenges in those relationships that I had, and then in the second session, just kind of it was like reprogramming um, those those things that had impacted me and were creating those limiting beliefs, and helped kind of free up my mind. It wasn't like snap, it's over, but it helped set me on a path, and then you've been supportive ever since in that path of just getting out of that hole, out of that funk, and focusing on what's important in my life.
I love it, man. That's probably better than I could explain it, to be honest. What was your initial, so we go back, what was your initial like expectation walking in before you did everything you just described? Like, what was your initial expectation, or what were you thinking or feeling at the time walking into taking that step? I mean, you didn't know me that well, or it was some random guy on the internet, blah blah blah. So, like,
Yeah.
your initial expectation.
Well, I admit, I'll say met. I heard your content, a bunch of other guys on the that I've shared with you that have been really helpful with their content to understand kind of what was happening. Um, Over the past year and a half, I've been working with the therapist, life coach, and he's been phenomenal. And he really helped me make a lot of strides and unpacking a lot of stuff I didn't know I had to unpack. And each time I unpacked this stuff, it was things that I thought were the cause of why I was feeling the way I was feeling. The reality is, what I discovered over that time period, and since then, and talking to you and researching narcissism, is it was a lot of stuff I had to unpack that made me a more susceptible victim of of the abuse, of narcissistic abuse. And but each time I was looking for a silver bullet, I didn't want to feel the way I was feeling. And each time I thought, oh, this is it. And it felt like, there was a bunch of shit just lifted off of my chest. But I still had this kind of underlying feeling. And when I heard you talk about the things that you talked about, I knew that you understood it, and I knew that you could help. And particularly after that first session, having gone through your own challenges and kind of validating, it was like you could complete my sentences because you knew what was coming next. And I see you helping other people now, functional, and I was like, oh, I want to be like that guy. I want this in the rearview mirror as quickly as possible.
Yeah, no, I'm like speechless, man. I really appreciate you just doing all this. But what hesitations did you have? Either with me or with the breakthrough session, or just like whatever. And any what were the hesitations?
Well, it's hard. It's hard work, but I felt like I had done a lot of hard work. Both you and my other therapists I've seen pretty regularly are approachable, and are I'll say are validating without being kind of like yes men. You'll push back when it needs to be pushed back. You'll ask probing questions, deeper questions to get to the bottom of things. And so it was, here I am, this former airborne battalion commander, Iron Man, and saying I'm going to tell you it was okay to be vulnerable with you. And I'm a guy that I think has a pretty decent EQ, and pretty empathetic, and most people don't see that on the cover. And it, you know it's hard to be vulnerable sometimes. And it was easy to be with you, which is really what I could let my guard down and peel back the inner shit and start solving some problems.
Mm. Well, that's actually going to be my biggest takeaway. I think that's finding someone who is able, for whatever reason. I mean, to be honest, I don't even fully know why to answer like how we create that safe space, but like finding someone that for whatever reason you feel comfortable with to actually, I heard a thing like if you're going to work with the therapist, you have to tell them anything, or a coach or whatever. Like if you're going to work with someone, you have to find someone that you'd be willing to really peel back the layers. So just a mental note for me. I think that's like a critical piece. Again, for whatever reason, you had that. So after we did all our stuff and ongoing kind of integration work and weekly support or and whatnot, what were you able to achieve after us working together?
Yeah, we really kind of, you helped me set my goals and what I wanted to do kind of personally with my business, et cetera. And I was able to focus on that stuff because for the longest time I had no focus. I felt stuck, and and now here I am, um, not stuck anymore. And in fact, since you and I have been working together, um, that crazy bitch has reached out to me 3 times, and it's each time it's been like, less and less, and just recently being catfished on a dating app by her with a profile that was solely intended to just to try and catfish me. And I'm just like, don't you have anything better to do with your time now? And and so those things don't bother me anymore. And as a result of that, I'm free to focus on, like we were prepared. We just had 2 hurricanes here in Florida, and my business is just jamming now because I was able to focus on a plan, assemble the right team together, and to be really successful, help a ton of people out post 2 hurricanes while I was going through my own challenges with 4 feet of water in my own garage. Um, but really start to get after it. And also personally, I've met a ton of people, um, and am able to let that past just be the past and focus on the future.
I mean, yeah, it was like the phrase was like save your. That was a big piece. Obviously, emotionally work through your personal stuff, but also like to save your company, which you either have done or are beyond on track to do, which
Yeah.
is incredible. You kind of touched on this, so but what have you tried in the past and what made this different to kind of do what we did?
Yeah, I'd done a lot of work, as I mentioned, with another therapist. He didn't specialize. He didn't have the understanding of um, recovery from narcissism abuse, and so he didn't have that kind of same intellectual foundation. Great guy, and has helped me tremendously. As I mentioned, the physical resilience, spiritual resilience, but all of those things were tremendously helpful. But they didn't get to the underlying challenge of what really jacked me up in the head. And I shared this with you. I met another lady, and I didn't say anything about my previous relationship, and she had been a victim of narcissistic abuse in a marriage. And I just said something, yeah, I'm kind of familiar with that, but that was it. And then she shared with me a video about hoovering. And when I watched that video, it described almost exactly what happened to me. And I'm like, oh my God. And then I started the research phase. And in the research phase, I'm like, oh my gosh. And that just opened my eyes to what was going on. And then about that same time, she tried to like hoover me back in, re-engage me, and tell me this horse shit that she was going to a therapist. And, I wanted to help her because I'm an empath. And then I watched this video that was like the tactics of a female covert narcissist. And I freaking started crying because when they described the ideal victim, it was me. And and then I just as I researched more and more, social media feeds you what you're looking for, and that's when I started getting served up your content and some others out there, and that set me on a path to at least understand intellectually what was going on in my head, and I still couldn't solve it like mentally, emotionally. I needed your help to do that, but it got me to the point where I understood I needed to do something different, and and your content and then connecting with you in that process really helped kind of release the past and focus on the future.
What would you say to someone who's trying to break free from a narcissist or just trying to start their healing journey and take this, really get unstuck, like you said?
No contact. Be disciplined. Be disciplined. Get help, because likely your friends can't help you enough that you need it, because they probably don't have that same level of experience. Like I'm a friend to someone right now, um, and she's going through similar what I did. I'm much farther along, and so I get it, but most people won't get it. And what can happen is your friends, you can wear them out with this shit because they won't understand until you meet someone like you that's been through it or understands it and is like a professional and knows how to help you get out of that. You've got to find professional help, and your brain like gets rewired, um, physically, emotionally, chemically, and it's almost impossible to get out of it by yourself, and because of you've been conditioned and you didn't know you're being conditioned at the time. That's the problem. And once you start to understand it, you get this intellectual understanding what the heck was happening to you and why. But it's so hard to get out of it by yourself. It's perhaps impossible, and you got to get professional help and to get you on the way to recovery.
What's next for you?
Hmm. Uh, to be determined, man. Got I'm reigniting my passion in a lot of things, and you know, I, fundamentally, I want to be in a healthy relationship. This person is a good friend of mine now, and I'm helping her get through this stuff as we talk. And the incredible woman that I was dating before I got hoovered again, they helped me see what a healthy relationship is supposed to be like. And fortunately, I'm incredibly close with my ex-wife. We drifted apart over a period of years, but we're married happily for 23 of the 25 years, and she's been a huge supporter, and I love her very much platonically, and she's been really helpful. But I went through this period of time after we got divorced that I and it was like 2.5 years and then a year apart, and then I got hoovered back in, where I got conditioned to accept shit in a relationship. And so now that has changed pretty significantly.
All right, man. Any parting comments? Anything else you'd like to share that you haven't already said?
um I think I was expecting when I came into this to have this like totally focus on narcissism, and uh it doesn't like exclusively focus on that. And it's good because then all the narcissism does, in my opinion, is jacks you up, so that all these other that you're conditioned in a way that you can start having these limiting beliefs, and you help understand why that cause of that was. But then you go even deeper to take a look at identifying what these limiting beliefs are, and then kind of help in the reprogramming of those limiting beliefs that's beyond just the freaking narcissism. The narcissism was just the abuse that got you to that point, that where you create these own limiting beliefs in your own head. because of the condition you had. And I didn't understand that, and it's awesome because it's unlocked even more potential, I think, and um, you know, to help me determine even a better way ahead.
I appreciate it, man. Well, nobody asked my parting comments, but I'm gonna give it anyway. I genuinely, it's an honor to know you, to work with you. I really have a ton of respect for you. You inspire me just based on who you are, on top of your decorated track record. Um, and I love you like a brother, man. It's been a true pleasure, and thank you so much.
Thank you, man. Appreciate you.